Hello there, and welcome. I am very glad you found your way here tonight. Maybe the day has been long. Maybe your thoughts are still moving, softly but stubbornly, like little footsteps echoing through an old stone corridor. Or maybe you have come back to Hallownest because there is something strangely peaceful about its sadness when it is spoken gently enough. The kingdom is ruined, yes. It is dangerous, yes. But it is also quiet and patient and full of stories that can be followed slowly, one dim lantern at a time. Tonight we are going to drift through the creatures corrupted by the infection. Not as a harsh bestiary, not as a rushed list, not as a loud catalogue of enemies and attacks. We will move calmly through Hallownest, region by region, creature by creature, and listen to what the orange light did to the bodies it touched. We will stay close to what the kingdom shows clearly. Some creatures are plainly infected, named as husks, visibly swollen with orange light, or directly tied to the Radiance's plague. Others in Hallownest are dangerous without being clearly corrupted by the infection, and we will not force them into the wrong story. The gentler truth is often the truer one, especially in a kingdom where silence already does so much of the telling. So settle in. Let your shoulders loosen. Let your breathing slow. You do not need to fight anything tonight. You do not need to count damage, memorize attack patterns, or decide which path through the crossroads is safest after the orange growth spreads. Tonight, the creatures of Hallownest are far away. They are only names, shapes, and sad little echoes in a story that has already happened. Before we begin, if this quiet journey helps you rest, you can leave a like, so another tired wanderer might find it too. And if you feel like commenting, tell me where you're listening from tonight. It is comforting to imagine many small rooms, many low lights, many slow breaths, all resting for a while above the same old kingdom. Now breathe in and breathe out. The temple is sealed. The crossroads are quiet. The orange light is distant. Let us begin with the word that explains so many bodies in Hallownest: husk. A husk is not just an enemy. It is a tragedy in one small word. A husk is what remains when the inward life has been lost or buried. In Hallownest, many of the former citizens and workers of the kingdom are encountered as husks, still moving through old roads, old cities, old duties and old fears. The infection has not erased their shapes completely. It has left just enough of them to make the absence hurt. The wandering husk is one of the simplest infected figures. It moves through the early roads of the forgotten crossroads, a former bug reduced to slow aggression. There is no grand title, no special weapon, no dramatic arena. Just a body walking where a person once lived. That simplicity is what makes it important. Before the night understands the radiance, the dreamers, the abyss, or the vessel plan, the kingdom gives one of its core truths in this humble form. Hallownest is full of people who are still here, and yet not here. The husk hornhead is another early shape of the same loss. Its horned head makes it more distinct, but its meaning is similar. A former inhabitant changed into a hostile shell. It charges through old spaces with the urgency of instinct, not society. Once perhaps it belonged to the flow of the kingdom's roads. Now it belongs to the infection's pattern of motion without freedom. The leaping husk gives the infection more suddenness. It does not merely walk. It jumps, closing distance with a kind of crude energy. Its movement makes the early crossroads feel less predictable, but beneath the danger is the same sorrow. The body has retained motion. maybe even a trace of old physical habit, but the mind is gone from ordinary reach. The husk bully feels heavier, more aggressive, more forceful. It is still a husk, still a former being reduced by the orange plague, but it carries itself with blunt violence. The name bully suggests not just infection, but a personality reduced to its roughest outer edge. Hallownest often names enemies in a way that preserves the shape of what they might once have been. The infection does not create clean monsters. It turns former lives into rough silhouettes. The husk warrior is more disciplined in shape. It carries a weapon and fights like something that once knew battle, or at least carried a guard-like role. This is one of the most painful things about the infected husks. Roles remain. A warrior continues as a warrior. A guard continues as a guard. A miner continues as a miner. The infection hollows out selfhood, but leaves the outward function like a costume on an empty stage. The husk guard makes this even clearer. It is large, armoured and slow, blocking paths with heavy force. A guard exists to protect a place, a law, a people or a ruler. But when infected, the guard protects nothing meaningful. It becomes only obstruction, duty without mind, strength without judgment. The husk guard is a small version of Hallownest's larger failure. Old systems continuing after their purpose has died. The entombed husk belongs to the resting grounds, and its name carries burial with it. These husks rise in a place of graves and memory, reminding the wanderer that even the buried are not fully safe from the kingdom's unrest. The resting grounds should be a place of quiet, but the infection and the lingering dream world make even rest uncertain. The entombed husk is one of the saddest infected forms because it joins two kinds of disturbance: the dead disturbed and the self overtaken. In the City of Tears, the infected husks become more socially specific. The husk sentry is a former guard of the capital, still patrolling or defending old spaces. The city was once the kingdom's proud centre, and sentries would have belonged to its order. Under the infection, that order becomes hollow enforcement. The sentry remains, but not the society it served. It is not a guardian of living citizens anymore. It is another shell of authority. The heavy sentry carries that same idea, with more weight. Its size and weapon make the capital feel as though its old defences have turned inward. The infection of sentries matters because guards are meant to keep danger out. In the city, danger has already entered the mind. A weapon in infected hands becomes a memory of protection turned hostile. The winged sentry adds height to that old duty. It flies through rooms that once belonged to the city, attacking from above. Wings in Hallownest often suggest freedom, grace or quick movement, but in infected sentries, flight becomes another way for lost order to pursue the living. Even the air of the capital is not free of the old guard's corrupted motion. The lance sentry is another refined form of infected defence. A lance implies training, military order, and the old structure of the city. Under infection, that refinement is stripped of purpose. The attack remains. The mind behind the attack does not. This is why the city feels so haunted. The former civilization did not vanish into empty rooms. It remains as armed reflex. The great husk sentry, larger and more imposing, turns that same theme into a monument of infected authority. It feels less like a creature and more like a moving remnant of the city's old security. The capital's defences still stand, but they no longer defend the living kingdom. They are infected echoes of a law that cannot understand its own collapse. The husk dandy is one of the saddest infected citizens because it preserves the image of old refinement. A dandy suggests fashion, status, and social identity. In the city of tears, where class and wealth are built into architecture, such a husk carries the fall of high society in one body. The infection did not only take workers and guards, it took the elegant, the wealthy, the socially polished. Under orange light, status becomes another empty shell. The cowardly husk keeps a different kind of personality. It flees more than it fights, suggesting fear preserved as behaviour after the self is gone. This is quietly horrible. The infection can leave behind not only aggression, but fear. A cowardly motion continues even when the person who once felt fear is no longer reachable. Hallownest's infected are not all identical because loss does not erase every trace evenly. The gluttonous husk suggests appetite, swelling, and consumption. Infected bodies often become exaggerated, and here hunger seems to remain as the defining trait. The body becomes a caricature of desire. The infection does not only control, it distorts. It pushes some traits outward until the creature is almost a symbol of what it has lost control over. The gorgeous husk is an especially strange and melancholy figure. It appears beautiful, wealthy, and refined, but it is still a husk. Its geo-reward and appearance connect it to wealth and status in the city. It becomes a reminder that the infection is not impressed by beauty. Fine shells and rich appearances do not protect the inner life. A gorgeous exterior can still be empty. The spiny husk found in the hive region carries infection into a different kind of social body. It is still a husk but adapted to the hive's dangerous golden world. Its spines and placement make it feel like a former bug changed into something defensive and hostile. It shows how the husk condition can appear outside the most obvious city roads, shaped by the area around it. The husk hive is another infected body associated with the hive, and it is one of the more unsettling forms because it releases hivelings. It suggests a husk turned into a kind of living nest, a body that carries and releases smaller attackers. This is infection as loss of self and as grotesque housing. A former being becomes a container for hostile life. Hallownest's plague often turns bodies into functions, and here the function is spawning danger. The violent husk appears when the crossroads become more deeply infected. It is more aggressive, more swollen with the later stage of the plague, and its name tells the story simply. Violence is all that remains visible. The infected crossroads are frightening because familiar roads gain these more intense forms, as though the sickness has ripened. The slobbering husk is another later infected form, grotesque and unstable. Its body expresses the infection more physically, less like a former citizen and more like a being overrun by orange sickness. The name is ugly because the condition is ugly. Hallownest does not make every infected creature tragic in a graceful way. Some become pitiful in ways that are bodily, wet, and hard to look at. The furious vengefly is one of the creatures added to the infected crossroads, a more aggressive form of the vengefly shaped by the later spread of the plague. Ordinary vengeflies are already hostile wildlife, but the furious infected variant shows what the orange light does when it sharpens aggression. The creature becomes faster, more violent, more restless, part of the crossroads' worsening fever. The volatile gruzzer is another infected crossroads variant, and its danger is in instability. A simple flying creature becomes a little vessel of explosive sickness. The name volatile is exact. The infection is not merely making creatures angry. It can make them unstable, bursting, dangerous after death, as though the orange plague has filled them with pressure. The infected variants in the crossroads matter because they show escalation. The kingdom was already wounded when the night arrived, but it can become more visibly diseased. Furious vengeflies, volatile gruzzers, violent husks, slobbering husks, and the swollen orange growths of the region all make the same point. The infection is not just old history, it is still moving. There are also creatures whose corruption is tied to fungal and plant-like regions. The fungified husk is one of the clearest examples. It appears in the fungal wastes as a husk overgrown or altered by fungus, combining the general tragedy of a former bug with the region's own strange life. The infection in Hallownest often blends with local forms. A husk in the city feels like a former citizen. A husk in the fungal region feels absorbed into another ecology. The body is not only infected, it is also shaped by place. The volatile mosskin shows a similar principle in Greenpath. Mosskin are part of the old green world, connected to the mossy life of Greenpath and the broader presence of Un. A volatile one carries the danger of infection or instability into that organic realm. Greenpath's corruption is sad because it does not erase the beauty, it stains it. The leaves remain, the moss remains, but orange danger moves beneath the green. The Fool Eater is one of the easiest corrupted creatures to overlook, because it is not a bug walking on old roads or wearing the shape of a ruined citizen. It is a plant-like trap hidden in Greenpath, opening from the greenery with sudden hunger. And yet it belongs to the infection story. Its danger is not only the danger of a wild plant defending itself, it carries the orange corruption that has reached into the green life of the caverns. This widens the plague beyond shells and limbs. The infection can live in the rooted and waiting things too. The gulka belongs beside it as another infected plant-like creature of Greenpath. It does not wander like a husk. It does not guard like a sentry. It stays rooted, swelling and spitting from the foliage, a living threat among leaves. The orange force in such a creature feels different from the orange force in a city corpse. It is less social and more environmental, as if the sickness has entered the land's own soft defences. Greenpath is not only threatened by corrupted travellers passing through, some of its own green bodies have become part of the threat. The mossy vagabonds are especially tragic because they appear as a small group of infected wanderers in Greenpath. Their very name suggests travellers, little mossy beings perhaps once moving together, now overtaken. The infection of a group feels different from the infection of a lone creature. It implies a small community lost together. The moss knight is not always treated in the same way as the orange-eyed husks, and we should be careful with it. It is a guardian-like figure of Greenpath, connected to mossy life and old defence. Some creatures in Greenpath are hostile because they belong to the region, not necessarily because the radiance has fully overtaken them. This matters. Not every enemy in Hallownest is infected. Some are wild, territorial, ancient, or loyal to other powers. To speak accurately, we keep the clearly corrupted creatures close to the orange story and let other dangers remain what they are. The same care applies to many creatures in Fog Canyon, Deepnest, the Hive, and the wild edges of Hallownest. Charged lumaflies, umas, womas, Deepnest predators, hive defenders, and other creatures may be dangerous without being simple victims of the radiance. Harlownest is not a world where every threat has one cause. The infection is vast, but not every claw, sting or explosion belongs to it. In Crystal Peak, the infected miners are among the clearest corrupted beings. The husk miner is a former worker still tied to labour. It attacks with mining tools or motions connected to its work, showing how the infection can trap a body inside an old job. This is one of the most haunting creature types because it makes the plague feel ordinary. Not every victim was a warrior. Some were workers who simply kept mining until the song and self were gone. Myla belongs beside the husk miners, though she is not a journal enemy in the same dry sense. She begins as a friendly miner, singing near the road to Crystal Peak. Over time, the infection overtakes her. She becomes hostile, and her song is lost. Myla is one of the most important infected creatures emotionally, because the night can meet her before the corruption fully takes her. With many husks, the person is only implied. With Myla, the person is heard. The crystallized husk is another tragic figure of Crystal Peak. Its body is trapped or grown through with crystal, and its attack releases crystal energy. It is not only infected by the orange plague, it is also caught in the industrial and mineral nature of the region. Crystal Peak turns bodies into extensions of the mine. The infection works alongside crystal growth, making labour, sickness, and mineral power feel tangled together. The Crystal Guardian and its stronger form, the Enraged Guardian, also belong to the infected sorrow of Crystal Peak. The Guardian sits on a bench, a place that should mean rest, and turns it into danger. Its body is overtaken by crystal and orange influence, and it attacks with beams of energy. The Guardian is not only a great obstacle, it is a sign that even rest has been occupied by corruption. The crystal hunters and crystal crawlers are more closely tied to the crystal ecology and machinery of the peak, and we should be cautious about naming them as infected in the same way as husks. They are dangerous creatures of that region, but the clearest corrupted figures, there are the miners, crystallized husks, Myla's progression, and the guardian forms. Harlownest is clearer when some creatures remain outside the orange light, unless the kingdom itself clearly pulls them in. In the ancient basin, the infection takes one of its most intimate forms. The light seed is a small infection-bearing creature associated with the reanimation of broken vessel. Light seeds gather into the fallen vessel's broken shell, filling it with orange life and making it move. They are not just ordinary enemies, they are the little agents by which the infection turns a dead vessel into a boss. Their smallness makes them unsettling. The great tragedy of a sibling's body can be carried by tiny orange things. The infected balloon is another infection-based creature in the ancient basin, floating and bursting with orange danger. It is almost pure symptom, a drifting, swollen shape of the plague. Unlike a husk, it does not carry the same obvious former social identity. It feels more like infection given body. That makes it less personal but more uncanny. Broken vessel is one of the most important corrupted creatures in all of Harlownest. It is the corpse or husk of a vessel, reanimated by infection through light seeds. The body is sibling-like, close to the night's own kind, but it is not acting freely. When defeated, the infection is cleared from the broken shell, and the vessel reaches toward the night before collapsing. That reaching gesture is quiet and devastating. It makes the fight feel less like victory over a monster and more like release from a stolen motion. Lost kin, the dream form associated with broken vessel, is not infected in the same simple physical way as the reanimated body. It is a dream encounter, a more personal echo of the fallen sibling. But it belongs to the infection's emotional story because the waking body was corrupted and used. The name lost kin changes the entire meaning of broken vessel. It reminds us that the infected shell was not only an enemy, it was kin. The Hollow Knight is the central corrupted being. The Hollow Knight was chosen to contain the radiance and the infection. It was sealed inside the black egg, bound by the dreamer's masks and honoured as a saviour. But because it was not truly hollow, the radiance's influence remained able to work through it. The infection returned from within the very vessel meant to hold it. By the time the knight reaches the black egg, the Hollow Knight is chained, wounded, and visibly infected. The Hollow Knight's corruption is different from that of an ordinary husk. It is not merely a citizen overtaken by orange light. It is a living prison, failing from the inside. The radiance is sealed within it, and its body becomes the place where containment and infection meet. During the battle, it stabs itself, suggesting suffering, resistance, or a desperate attempt to end what it carries. No other infected creature expresses the tragedy quite like that. If the ordinary husks show what the infection did to Hallownest's people, the Hollow Knight shows what the kingdom's solution did to its chosen child. It is corrupted by the radiance, but also by the role imposed on it. The orange light is the visible sickness. The title is the older wound. The Watcher Knights are another important case. They are empty armours in Lurian's tower, animated by swarms of infection. Their bodies are not ordinary living bugs anymore. They are suits moved by the very force the Dreamer Seal was meant to contain. This makes them one of the clearest examples of the infection reviving or animating what should be still. Guard duty continues after selfhood, after life, perhaps even after body. The tower watches with hollow defenders, their dream counterpart, the Watcher. Night's absence from dream as individuals makes them even stranger. They're not remembered as personal spirits in the same way as warrior dreams. They are armour and infection, duty and swarm. In a tower dedicated to watching, the guardians themselves have become blind motion. The false knight is not infected in the same way. The small maggot inside Hegemol's armour seeks strength to protect its siblings. That fight belongs to desperation more than radiance corruption. This distinction matters in a script about infected creatures. The false knight is a tragic enemy, but not every tragic enemy is a creature corrupted by the infection. Hallownest contains many kinds of sorrow. The maggots themselves are weak creatures, and the one inside the armour is not a radiance-corrupted husk. It is a frightened being using stolen protection. Keeping this clear helps the infection story stay accurate. The Orange Plague is broad, but it should not be used to explain every hostile or desperate action in the kingdom. The Soul Master and the Soul Sanctum scholars are also complicated. They are not simply infected husks. Their tragedy is tied to soul experiments, ambition, and attempts to overcome or escape the kingdom's sickness. The Soul Master may be part of the infection's wider history because his work responds to the plague, but he is not best understood as just another radiance-corrupted creature. His corruption is intellectual and spiritual in another sense, the corruption of obsession. The mistakes and follies in the soul sanctum are products of that experimentation and failed soul work, not straightforward examples of orange infection. They belong to the secondary damage caused by the crisis. The infection created fear. Fear and ambition created the sanctum's horrors. That difference is important. In the Colosseum of Fools, the fools are explicitly infected, yet keep their resolve and fight fiercely in the trials. This makes them unusual. The shielded fool, sturdy fool, winged fool, heavy fool, and related trial fighters are not mindless in the same way as many husks. They remain dedicated to battle and spectacle, fighting to the death for the crowd's amusement. Their infection does not erase their role. It intensifies the brutality of the Colosseum's culture. The death loodle and battle obels of the Colosseum are part of the trial environment, but the key infected social group there is the fools themselves, still clinging to combat identity under the affliction. The Colosseum is loud, unlike many empty regions, but the infection there feels like violence turned ceremonial. A plague of dream light enters a place, already built around fighting, and the result is not quiet wandering, it is performance. This is one of the stranger things about the infection. It does not express itself identically in every culture. In citizens, it makes husks. In miners, it leaves labour. In mantis traitors, it becomes chosen strength. In fools, it remains combat resolve. In the hollow night, it becomes divine imprisonment and suffering. The orange light adapts to what it enters, leaving local shape around the same central loss. The mantis traitors are some of the most clearly corrupted non-husk creatures. They accepted the infection and left the mantis tribe's disciplined society. The mantis petra and mantis traitor are hostile infected mantises found around Queen's Gardens, and their presence shows the traitor lord's faction spread beyond one boss. These are not ordinary mantises defending their village. They are exiles shaped by the orange plague. The traitor, Lord himself, is the most important infected mantis. Once one of the mantis lords, he embraced the infection for strength and was cast out. His body is larger, more brutal, more swollen with power than the disciplined lords who remained. He represents the infection as temptation rather than simple accident. Some creatures are victims of the dream light. The traitor lord is a warning about choosing it. His followers make the Queen's Gardens feel like a battlefield of old decisions. The gardens once belonged to the White Lady, but by the time the night arrives, they hold thorns, mantis traitors, dry as corpse, and the path to the hidden Queen. The infection here is not only biological, it is political exile made bodily. The infected mantises also show why the mantis lords are so impressive. Their tribe resisted the plague, not because it was impossible for mantises to fall, but because their law held after some did. Resistance is meaningful, because corruption was real and close. The traitor lord is the shadow that proves the discipline of the remaining lords. The bellfly belongs to the infection's bleaker signs, because it has no regard for its own life. It hangs in quiet places, shrieks, dives and explodes, turning its whole body into a final act of violence. That loss of self-preservation matters. A creature that should fear pain or avoid destruction instead becomes a little vessel of reckless force. The belfly is not grand, but it shows the plague at an intimate scale, breaking the instinct to survive and replacing it with a command to hurt. The pillflip, whurmp and blucksack in the waterways are also better treated as strange sewer life, unless the orange corruption is directly evident. They are grotesque, dangerous, and part of the fallen kingdom's lower ecology, but not every grotesque creature is infected. This distinction keeps the infection from becoming too vague. Hallownest's world is richer because some horrors belong to nature, some to dream, some to failed science, some to void, and some to ordinary hunger. The flukes, including flukefey, flukeman, flukemarm, and fluke larva, are unsettling sewer creatures, but their story is more about the waterway's breeding life than the Radiance's direct corruption. They are dangerous, bodily, and strange. They make the kingdom feel alive in a foul way, but they should not be folded into the infection unless the text clearly does so. Sometimes the quieter truth is this: a creature may be horrible and still not be infected. The same is true for many creatures in Deepnest: dirt carvers, carver hatchers, garpedes, deeplings, deep hunters, stalking devouts, and Nosk. Deepnest is terrifying, but its terror is older and different. Nosk imitates prey. Corpse creepers burst from corpses. Garpedes tunnel through the dark. These creatures belong to Deepnest's predatory ecology. They are not simply Radiance victims. Corpse creepers are especially tempting to connect to infection because they emerge from bodies, but their behaviour belongs to Deepnest's own horror. A corpse moving does not automatically mean the Radiance is responsible. Hallownest has many ways for bodies to become wrong. The infection is one way, not the only way. Nosk, despite imitating the night and living among corpses, is not best described as a creature corrupted by the infection. It is a predator with its own method. Including it among infected creatures would make the story less accurate. It belongs to loneliness, mimicry, and Deepnest's fear of recognition, not to the orange dream plague. This careful boundary helps the script breathe. We can honour the title by following every major creature and creature group clearly corrupted by the infection, while also acknowledging that Hallownest contains many non-infected dangers. The Radiance's plague is vast, but the kingdom is not one note. Some enemies are infected, some are wild, some are loyal, some are constructs, some are ghosts, some are void, some are mistakes. The infected creatures, when gathered together, form a sad pattern. The husks show corrupted citizens, the sentries show corrupted guards, the miners show corrupted labour, Myla shows a corrupted voice, the crystallized bodies show local material merging with sickness, the violent crossroads variants show escalation, the light seeds and infected balloons show infection almost as independent little bodies. Broken vessel shows a corpse of kin reanimated by the plague. The Watcher Knights show empty armour animated by infection. The Fools show infected combat culture. The Mantis Traitors show infection chosen as strength. The Hollow Knight shows the chosen container corrupted from within. Together, they are not just a list of enemies. They are a map of what the infection does to different kinds of life. It turns citizens into husks. It turns work into compulsion. It turns duty into reflex. It turns fear into violence. It turns strength into temptation. It turns corpses into motion. It turns culture into echo. It turns a saviour into a prison. And behind all of them is the Radiance, the forgotten light pressing through dream. The Radiance herself is not corrupted by the infection. She is the source of it. That distinction matters. She is the forgotten higher being whose dream light becomes the plague. She is not a victim of the orange corruption in the way Myla, the husks, or the Hollow Knight are. She is the will behind it, the old light that refused to remain forgotten. So when we say every creature corrupted by the infection, we are really speaking of the radiance's victims, vessels, carriers, and chosen followers. The infected are not all equal. Some are unwilling citizens, some are reanimated shells, some are beings who accepted power, some are bodies filled with light seeds, some are sealed around a god. The infection is one force, but its victims wear many shapes. The saddest of these may still be the ordinary husks, not because they are the strongest, not because they are the most mysterious, but because they show the scale of loss. For every famous tragedy in Hallownest, for every dreamer, every vessel, every knight, every god, there were ordinary bugs who simply lived in the kingdom when the dreamlight returned. The wandering husk and the husk warrior are small names for a huge grief. They are the common people of a ruined world. The most intimate may be Myla, because the night can hear her before and after. The most central is the hollow night, because the whole kingdom's failure gathers inside that body. The most symbolic is broken vessel, because the infection uses a sibling's shell like a puppet. The most political is the traitor lord, because he shows the infection as a choice for power. The most ceremonial are the infected fools, still fighting under the Colosseum's roar. The most mechanical are the watcher knights, armour and infection continuing old duty. The most feverish are the infected crossroads creatures, swelling through the place where the journey began, and all of them, in their own way, make Hallownest feel like a kingdom where bodies continued after peace, society and self had gone missing. There is another way to hear the story of the infection, and it is to listen for what each corrupted creature has lost. Some lost memory, some lost obedience, some lost stillness, some lost the gentle boundary between body and command. The orange light did not make one single kind of monster. It moved through many shapes, and each shape reveals something different about the kingdom. A husk in the crossroads tells us what happened to common workers and wanderers. A sentry in the City of Tears tells us what happened to civic order. A miner tells us what happened to labour underground. A traitor mantis tells us what happened when pride and ambition accepted the plague instead of resisting it. A vessel tells us the most terrible thing of all, because in that body the infection was not merely an accident. It was the burden the kingdom tried to seal away. So let us slow down again, and let the names pass gently, one after another, not as a hard roll of battle, but as a quiet remembrance. The wandering husk is the softest place to begin, because it is almost too ordinary. It is not crowned, it is not armoured, it is not a ruler, a champion, or a sacred thing. It is simply one of Hallownest's dead citizens, moved again by a light that does not belong in it. Its small walk through the crossroads feels like the after-image of a life that used to have purpose. It may have carried tools. It may have passed beneath the same signs and lamps every day. Now it does not choose a path so much as follow an inner pressure. It is a walking reminder that the plague did not begin with grand figures. It reached the small bodies too. The husk hornhead changes that ordinary sadness into something heavier. The horned shell gives the creature a blunt forward force, as if the old body has become a simple instrument of impact. In life, a horned shell might have been only a shape, only a feature of the bug beneath it. In corruption, it becomes a weapon. This is part of the cruelty of the infection. It does not need to create entirely new bodies to cause harm. It uses what is already there. A shell becomes armour, a limb becomes a lunge, a simple wandering form becomes dangerous because the mind inside has been pushed aside, and the body has been filled with restless command. The leaping husk carries the same sadness upward. It is still a husk, still a dead or emptied citizen shape, but its motion is sudden and animal-like. It throws itself into the air, as if the infection has made patience impossible. The jump is not graceful in the way a mantis leap is graceful, or deliberate in the way a trained guard might move. It is abrupt, anxious, nearly desperate. That makes it feel less like skill and more like compulsion. When we think of the infection as a dream pressing into waking bodies, the leaping husk becomes a small vivid picture of that pressure. It cannot simply remain still. It must spring. It must answer the orange command. The husk bully gives the plague a more aggressive posture. There is a strange tragedy in that name, because it sounds almost social, almost childish, as if some echo of personality or temperament has survived only in its roughest form. The body pushes forward. The old citizen becomes a shoving threat. But even here, the creature's not a villain in the clean, moral sense. It is a body robbed of peace. Hallownest is full of enemies that feel like they're guarding, hunting, feeding, or defending territory. The infected husks feel different. They feel like lives interrupted and then misused. The husk bully is frightening because it charges, but heartbreaking because there is so little self left in the charge. The husk warrior seems to remember a more formal violence. It carries the shape of someone who may once have stood among fighters, guards, or ordinary defenders of the kingdom. Yet the infection has reduced that old discipline to a hollow repetition. A warrior without a mind is one of the most mournful images Hallownest gives us. Strength remains, reflex remains. The lifted weapon remains, but judgment is gone, allegiance is gone. The difference between protection and harm has fallen away. The husk warrior shows how the plague can make bravery meaningless by tearing it away from will. The husk guard makes that idea heavier still. A guard is supposed to stand between danger and the vulnerable. A guard's purpose is boundary, duty, and watchfulness. But when the infection enters the old guard body, that purpose turns inward and sour. The guard no longer protects the kingdom from ruin. The guard becomes one of the shapes through which ruin moves. The old armour and posture still suggest authority, and that is what makes the creature feel so sad. Hallownest did not only lose its poor, its workers, and its wanderers, it lost its protectors. The walls still stand in places, but many of the bodies meant to defend them have become part of what makes the kingdom unsafe. The entombed husk is one of the quietest and most unsettling forms because it waits among death. In the resting places of Hallownest, where the body should be left to stillness, the infection has disturbed even the dignity of burial. The word entombed carries a deep hush with it. It suggests something sealed, something finished, something laid away. But the orange dream does not respect that ending. It reaches into the tomb and lifts a body that should have remained at rest. This is why the infected dead of Hallownest feel different from simple skeletons or ordinary remains. They are not just reminders that people died. They are reminders that even death was not enough to protect them from being used. The husk miner belongs to another kind of sorrow. In Crystal Peak, the work of the kingdom continues in a distorted way. Pickaxes rise and fall. Bodies cling to old labour. The mines sparkle with beauty, But that beauty is cold, hard and dangerous. The husk miner does not merely show that the infection reached the workers of the peak. It shows that labour can become haunting when purpose is gone. The miner's motion suggests habit without rest. Perhaps that is why Mila's story hurts so deeply beside it. The miners are not abstract. They are not just background shapes in a bright cavern. They are the idea of ordinary work continuing past the point where the worker has been lost. Mila is not a generic corrupted creature, and she should never be spoken of as if she were only an entry in a bestiary. She is one of the clearest small tragedies of the infection, because we meet her while there is still song in her. She works in Crystal Peak and sings with a sweetness that feels almost impossibly bright for a kingdom so broken. Over time, the infection reaches her. The orange light takes hold. Her song changes. Her words become less like herself. Eventually, the gentle miner who greeted the world with music can become hostile. What makes Mila so painful is that the change is visible across time. We are not only told that the plague steals minds, we hear it approaching in the fading of a voice. The crystallized husk belongs to Crystal Peak's stranger, overlap between mineral beauty and infected life. It is not enough that a husk has been taken by the plague. It is also bound into the sharp, shining identity of the mines. The body becomes part husk, part crystal, part weaponized environment. Hallownest often lets regions shape their creatures, and here the infection moves through a place already full of hard growth and brilliant edges. The result is beautiful in a terrible way. The crystallized husk reminds us that corruption does not always look like rot. Sometimes it gleams, sometimes it catches light, sometimes it looks almost precious until it moves. The crystal guardian sits in a lonely posture before it becomes a threat, and that simple image gives the creature a strange pathos. It is not described in the same way as an ordinary husk, yet the orange force and the harsher awakened form tie it to the disturbed condition of Crystal Peak. The guardian is wrapped in the region's crystal violence, its body sharpened and empowered by the same strange growth that makes the mountain glitter. When it becomes enraged, the calm of its first posture is lost. The creature feels less like a person and more like the peak itself, striking back through a broken body. Still, there is sadness in that body sitting there, waiting, as if trapped in a room of cold light. The furious vengefly is an important reminder that the infection did not only move through old citizens, it could also change lesser flying creatures, turning a familiar nuisance into something more unstable. Vengeflies are part of Hallownest's living world, creatures of wing and hunger, already capable of aggression, but the furious form carries the orange intensity of plague. Its very name suggests emotional excess, a creature driven beyond ordinary hostility. This matters because it shows the infection as an amplifier. It takes a thing that could already fly and bite and turns it into a more feverish expression of itself. The body is not made noble or grand. It is made more frantic. The volatile gruzzer gives the same truth in a rounder, more fragile shape. Ordinary gruzzers drift through the crossroads with a simple, almost careless movement. They are part of the low life of the old roads, but the volatile form turns that small body into a swelling danger. It is one of the clearest examples of infection as pressure, as a force that fills a creature until even death does not end the threat cleanly. The orange light turns smallness into instability. A creature that might once have been only a minor presence becomes something swollen with consequence. Even the humblest thing in Hallownest can become dangerous when the plague uses it as a vessel for force. The violent husk and the slobbering husk show what happens to the crossroads when the infection becomes impossible to ignore. The same region that once felt like the ruined entrance to a dead kingdom becomes brighter, harsher, and more feverish. These creatures are not merely old husks wandering in dust. They feel freshly intensified, as if the sealed plague has found new breath. The violent husk carries aggression in its very identity, while the slobbering husk feels grotesque and overfilled, a body no longer able to preserve even the smallest dignity of form. They mark a shift in atmosphere. The infection is no longer only the hidden cause beneath old ruin. It is present, visible, and spreading through the paths. The infected crossroads as a whole becomes one of the strongest environmental portraits of corrupted life. The roads do not simply contain infected creatures. They begin to feel infected as a place. Orange bulbs swell in the architecture. Pathways become blocked. Familiar rooms feel less familiar, as if the map itself has fallen ill. The creatures inside that changed region help the body of the kingdom speak. A violent husk here, a volatile flying thing there, a swollen growth in the wall, a low hum of danger where there used to be only dust. Hallownest is not healed by being explored. In some places it worsens. The crossroads teaches that the infection is not static, it can flare. The fungified husk is one of the most interesting corrupted bodies because it carries more than one transformation at once. It has the old shape of a husk, the soft strangeness of the fungal wastes, and the orange pressure of the infection moving through it. The fungus of the wastes is not simply decoration. That region has its own living intelligence, its own odd community, its own language of spores and growth. When a husk is drawn into that environment, the body becomes layered. It is no longer only a dead citizen taken by dream. It is also a body altered by the damp breathing world of fungus. The result feels like Hallownest's decay mixing with the natural power of a living biome. The volatile mosskin brings the plague into Greenpath's green quiet. Mosskin are tied to that lush, overgrown place, to hidden paths and soft leaves, to the old life around Un's domain. In their ordinary forms, they belong to the region's plant-like strangeness, but the volatile form shows infection pressing into that green world and turning it unstable. Greenpath can feel almost peaceful compared with the emptier stone corridors of Hallownest, but it is not untouched. The orange force can bloom among leaves just as easily as among ruins. The volatile mosskin is frightening because it turns a soft natural body into a bursting sign of sickness. The mossy vagabonds are some of the saddest creatures to remember because they gather together. Many infected creatures are lonely. They wander alone, lunge alone, or guard an old place alone. The mossy vagabonds appear as a little group, hidden away, as if some last social shape remains around them. Their corruption feels communal, not because they are having a gentle life together, but because several bodies have been taken into the same strange stillness. The scene carries a quiet ache. It suggests that even refuge can become infected. Even hiding together in a green place cannot save a creature, if the dream light has already reached too deeply. The traitor mantises are different from the husks because the story around them is not only one of helpless infection. Among the mantises, the old village holds its discipline with astonishing strength. The mantis lords rule with poise, and their people resist the plague more successfully than much of Hallownest. That makes the traitor tribe stand out. They accepted the infection's power, and that choice separates them from the proud order of the village. The corrupted mantis is not only a sick body, it is a broken allegiance. A mantis that takes the orange strength abandons the restraint and honour that define the uninfected mantis society. The mantis traitor shows that corruption can imitate strength. The body is quick, angular and dangerous, still carrying the elegance of mantis form, but that elegance has been pulled toward brutality. In a normal mantis, speed and precision feel disciplined. In the infected traitor, they feel sharpened by a different hunger. The orange force does not erase every trace of what the creature was. It bends what was already there. This is part of why the traitor tribe is so memorable. They do not become shapeless. They remain recognizably mantis, and that makes the corruption more painful. It is not replacement, it is distortion. The mantis petra lifts that distortion into the air. Flight in Hallownest can mean many things. It can mean freedom, irritation, elegance, or threat. In the infected mantis, it becomes another way the chosen corruption spreads through motion. A petra still feels connected to the tribe's original grace, but the orange light has turned that grace against the old order. These winged traitors belong to Queen's Gardens rather than the disciplined heart of the village, and their presence helps make that garden feel like a place where beauty and betrayal have grown together. Leaves, thorns, and infected mantis wings all share the same uneasy air. The traitor lord is one of the clearest examples of the infection as accepted power. He is not a random husk stumbling through the crossroads. He is a leader who broke from the mantis lords and embraced the plague, gaining strength but losing the honour that mattered to his kind. His size and violence make that choice visible. He is not merely sick, he has fallen in a way that carries social weight. To speak of him softly is not to make him innocent. It is to understand the tragedy of a proud creature choosing power that separated him from his people, then becoming part of the same orange ruin that devoured so much else. The Queen's Gardens become more sorrowful because of the traitor mantises. That region is already a place of overgrowth, thorns and fading royal presence. It carries the memory of the White Lady's old influence and the grief of a kingdom whose sacred spaces have become dangerous. The infected mantises within it add a sharper grief. They are not simply corrupted citizens, they are members of a people who elsewhere still show discipline, dignity, and resistance. Their corruption proves that even strong cultures can fracture. Even a people famous for self-command can lose some of its own to the promise of power. The light seed is one of the purest small signs of the infection's nature. It is not a citizen with a profession, not a warrior with a past we can name, not a noble or guardian. It is a little infected organism, bright with orange force, almost like a seed of plague made mobile. Light seeds are important because they show the infection in a more basic living form. They do not need the sorrow of a ruined city to be meaningful. Their small bodies carry the idea that the orange light can gather, move, and inhabit life at a tiny scale. They are like little sparks of a much larger dream. The infected balloon is stranger and more unsettling. It drifts and swells, connected to the ancient basin's infected horror, and especially to the broken vessel's domain. Its name tells us what it is directly. It is infected life, made buoyant and unstable, a floating body of plague pressure. There's almost something fragile about it, and that fragility is uncomfortable because it is still dangerous. The infected balloon reminds us that corruption in hollowness can be grotesque without being loud. A slow drift can be as eerie as a charge. A rounded, floating shape can carry the same orange command as a blade or claw. The ancient basin feels different from the crossroads or the city because the corruption there gathers around the failed sacred project of the kingdom. The husks in the road speak of a dead society. The basin speaks of what the pale king tried to do beneath that society. The infected creatures there feel close to the deepest wound. Light seeds and infected balloons move in a place tied to vessels, void, and secrecy. Their small bodies make the background of the tragedy visible. They are not merely random infected things. They are the living atmosphere around one of Hallownest's most sorrowful failures. The broken vessel must be spoken of with great care. It is not a normal creature in the same way a husk or mantis is a normal creature. It is one of the Pale King's children, a vessel formed for the impossible purpose of containing the radiance, without a mind, without a will, without a voice. The body we meet is broken, animated by infection and surrounded by infected growths, but the sorrow belongs to something older than the fight itself. The broken vessel shows that the infection did not only corrupt creatures that had ordinary lives, it also entered the aftermath of the kingdom's cruelest plan, moving through a discarded child of that plan. Lost kin deepens the ache rather than simply adding another corrupted body. In the dream, the same broken figure is remembered or encountered in a more inward way. The name itself changes everything. Broken vessel sounds like an object. Lost kin sounds like relationship. It reminds us that this body was not only a failed container, it was kin to the night, another child of the abyss, another silent shape from the same terrible origin. The infection is still part of the image, but the dream encounter pulls us toward grief rather than classification. It asks us to feel the body as family, not as a mere obstacle. The Hollow Night is the centre of the whole infected tragedy. Every other corrupted creature can be understood as a consequence, a symptom, a sign, or a smaller expression of the same plague. But the Hollow Night is the chosen prison of that plague, the living seal that could not remain perfectly sealed. The infection within them is not accidental in the ordinary sense. It is the kingdom's solution, failing from the inside. The orange light leaks through the very body meant to hold it. That makes the Hollow Night both terrifying and heartbreaking. They are the most important infected being in Hallownest, and also one of the most deeply wronged. When the Hollow Night strikes, the movement carries more than violence. It carries imprisonment. It carries the long loneliness of being sealed inside the black egg. It carries the pressure of the radiance, the failure of purity, the impossible burden placed on a child who is expected to be empty. The infection does not merely use the Hollow Night as it uses a husk. It erupts through them from a central wound. The body becomes both jailer and prisoner, both container and victim. That is why the final infected figure of Hallownest cannot be understood as a simple monster. The Hollow Night is the kingdom's sin made visible. The Watcher Knights offer another image of infected animation. Their shells lie in the Watcher's spire, tied to Lurian's domain and the formal order of the city. When they rise, they do not feel alive in the ordinary warm sense. They feel like armoured bodies reactivated, old defences made dangerous by the same orange force that stirs so much of Hallownest. The infection here becomes a power that can move heavy shells and turn guardianship into threat. The Watcher Knights are not common citizens. They are part of the city's higher architecture of protection, and their corruption shows that even elite defences did not remain clean. There is something coldly ceremonial about the Watcher Knights. They do not chatter. They do not show personality. They roll and strike in repeated patterns, as if the infection has found a way to wake their bodies without waking anything tender inside them. Their chamber is high above the City of Tears, and that height matters. It shows the plague reaching upward into places of authority and surveillance. The city below is filled with husks. The spire above contains animated knights. The dreamer sleeps nearby, but sleep alone has not preserved the bodies around him from becoming part of the kingdom's danger. The infected fools of the Colosseum carry a more ambiguous sorrow because they still seem bound to performance, trial, and spectacle. In the arena above Kingdom's Edge, fighters appear in forms that include corrupted or infected combatants among the trials. The shielded fool, sturdy fool, winged fool, and heavy fool belong to that harsh culture of combat. Where a husk shows civil life emptied out, a fool shows violence ritualized. If infection touches such a body, it does not create aggression from nothing. It enters a place where aggression is already celebrated. The result feels less like a peaceful creature ruined, and more like a brutal role made feverish. The Colosseum is important because it reminds us that Hallownest was not gentle even before every orange wound opened. The kingdom had prisons, trials, nobles, mines, dead cities, and arenas. The infection is catastrophic, but it spreads through a world that already contained ambition, hierarchy, cruelty, and hunger. Corrupted creatures in the Colosseum therefore do not feel like a simple invasion of innocence. They feel like another layer of decay in a place where bodies were already being thrown into violence for acclaim. The orange light makes the spectacle worse, but the spectacle was waiting for it. The husk sentry returns us to the City of Tears and to the idea of duty without self. These sentries stand as remnants of civic protection, wearing the identity of guards while lacking the mind that should guide a guard's hand. Their corruption is one of the reasons the city feels so empty. There are still figures in the streets and halls, but their presence does not make the place alive. It makes the absence of life stronger. A sentry without judgment is a symbol of order. After meaning has drained away, the city is guarded, but not protected. The heavy sentry gives the same idea, weight and mass. This is a body of authority made more difficult to pass, more forceful, more physically imposing. The infection does not need subtlety when it has a creature like this. It can let the body stand in armour and swing with the blunt continuation of old training. Yet the sadness remains beneath the armour. Someone wore that role before the kingdom failed. Someone belonged to the institution of the city. Now the institution survives only as hostility. In the heavy sentry, Hallownest's public strength becomes one more form of danger. The winged sentry changes the shape of that danger by placing it in the air. The City of Tears is a vertical place, full of lifts, balconies, towers, and high chambers. A winged guard belongs naturally to that architecture. But under corruption, flight becomes another way the empty city is patrolled by bodies that no longer understand what they guard. The winged sentry is elegant in outline and melancholy in meaning. It shows that the infection did not only corrupt things crawling close to the ground, it reached the high spaces too, the places where rain falls past windows and the city remembers its former grandeur. The lance sentry gives the city a sharper silhouette. A lance is a weapon of reach, discipline, and formation. In the hands of a corrupted sentry, it becomes a reminder that trained violence can outlive the purpose that once restrained it. The creature's danger is not chaotic in the way a bursting infected body is chaotic. It is ordered, pointed, and formal. That makes it unsettling. The infection can appear as frenzy, but it can also inhabit old forms of control. A corrupted sentry with a lance still looks like a guard. That is the painful part. The appearance of order remains after order has died. The great husk sentry is a grander version of the same civic grief. Its size makes the loss of the city feel larger. The body seems important, perhaps once tied to stronger defence or higher station, and now it has become a heavy moving remnant. There is a difference between a ruin that is empty and a ruin that is occupied by its own corrupted guardians. Hallowness is often the second kind. It does not merely let the wanderer pass through abandoned spaces, it makes the past rise and block the way. The great husk sentry is the past with a weapon in its hand. The husk dandy is quietly devastating because it shows that the infection reached vanity and elegance too. Not every corrupted citizen had the same social role. Some carried signs of wealth, style, or performance. The dandy still suggests a person concerned with appearance, with social presence, with the polished surface of life. Under the plague, that surface remains only as an eerie costume around emptiness. The body may still look refined in outline, but refinement cannot protect a mind from the radiance. The husk dandy turns the small luxuries of city life into relics. The cowardly husk gives a different emotional remnant. Its name suggests fear, retreat, or avoidance, though what remains is still a hostile, corrupted body. This is a subtle part of Hallownest's creature design. The husks are not all one blank category. They imply different temperaments, stations, and habits from before collapse. A cowardly body taken by infection is sad because fear should have been a feeling that helped it survive. Instead, whatever old fear belonged to that creature has become meaningless. The orange light does not comfort the frightened, it only moves them. The gluttonous husk is a body shaped by appetite. Hunger is one of the oldest drives a creature can have, and the infection seems to leave the shape of that appetite behind while twisting it into menace. This creature's corruption is not elegant, it is bodily, heavy, and almost embarrassing in its exposure. Hallownest often hides its largest tragedies beneath symbols and ruins, but the gluttonous husk is direct. It shows desire after dignity has gone. It makes appetite into another echo the plague can use. The body wants or seems to want, but the want is no longer truly its own. The gorgeous husk is one of the stranger and more memorable corrupted citizens because beauty remains in the name. Gorgeous is not a word we expect beside husk, and that mismatch is exactly why it lingers. The creature suggests wealth, display, and self-presentation carried beyond collapse. The infection has not erased the outward sign of splendour. It has hollowed it. This is one of Hallownest's great visual truths. Beautiful things can be ruined without becoming visually plain. The gorgeous husk remains ornate, and that makes the corruption feel sharper. The plague has entered the dressed body as easily as the ragged one. The husk hive and the spiny husk pull us toward another small category of corrupted or husk-like life, where bodies are associated with specific physical traits or environments. The spiny husk is dangerous through its body shape, carrying harm in the edges of itself. The husk hive is stranger, connected to the swarming idea of smaller life within or around a husk form. These creatures show how the word husk can cover many expressions of emptiness and infestation. A husk can wander, a husk can leap, a husk can guard, a husk can carry spines or swarm-like associations. The basic tragedy remains the same. A body remains after the self has been taken. There are also corrupted forms that are easiest to understand by what they are not. A normal kralid, a tik-tik, a baldur, or a durandu may be dangerous, but danger alone does not prove infection. A wild creature can bite because it is territorial or hungry. A beast can charge because that is how it survives. A plant-like guardian can defend its home without belonging to the radiance. This distinction may sound small, but it keeps the story honest. Hallownest is not a world where every sharp tooth is orange inside. Some creatures are simply part of the underground ecology. The infection is vast, but it is not the only source of danger. Aspids are a good place to practice that carefulness. Their attacks are memorable, and their presence can feel almost personal to anyone travelling the old roads, but they are not automatically the same as infected husks. They are hostile creatures of Hallownest's living world. Some may appear in infected regions, and all danger feels sharper under the shadow of the plague, but we should not turn irritation into false law. The infected roll call belongs to creatures clearly marked by corruption, by husk identity, by orange swelling, by direct narrative connection, or by known ties to the plague. Everything else can remain what it is. Dangerous, yes, but not necessarily corrupted. The same caution belongs to Deepnest. That place is terrifying, but its terror is older and stranger than the infection alone. The stalking creatures, hidden tunnels, and predatory shapes of Deepnest do not need the radiance to be frightening. Nosk, corpse creepers, and the deep things that wear darkness like a home belong to another kind of horror. They may live in the same fallen kingdom, but their danger does not always come from orange dreamlight. This matters because Hallownest becomes richer when we let different fears remain different. Infection is one horror, Deepnest is another. The world is large enough for both. The soul sanctum also asks for restraint. Its scholars and mistakes are tied to soul, ambition, and the desperate search for power or protection, not simply to the ordinary spread of the infection in the way husks are. Soulmaster is tragic and dangerous, but he is not the same kind of infected creature as a slobbering husk or broken vessel. The sanctum story belongs to misuse of soul and fear of plague, rather than clean surrender to the orange light. This distinction lets the infected creatures stand in their own proper sorrow. Not every madness in Hallownest has the same cause. The hive is another place where the story can become too simple if we are careless. Hive creatures defend their own society with fierce order, and the hive has its own queen, customs, and sealed identity. Some husk forms associated with the wider kingdom may appear in relation to hive-like bodies, but the hive itself is not simply an infected ruin in the same way the crossroads becomes. Its people are isolated, golden, and loyal to their own structure. To call every hive creature corrupted by the infection would flatten what makes the hive distinct. The plague is powerful, but Hallownist societies do not all fail in the same way. Constructs and animated remnants are not all infected either. The king's moulds, wings moulds, and other pale creations belong to the White Palace and the Pale King's strange artifice. They can be dangerous without being plague victims. The collector, too, is better understood through its own strange nature and obsession than as a simple, infected creature. Hallownist contains made beings, void-touched beings, dream beings, beasts, mantises, mushrooms, husks and gods. The infection touches many of them, but not all. Careful lore is gentle because it allows each creature to keep its correct sadness. Dream beings should also be held apart unless the story clearly ties them to the plague. Warrior dreams, memories and dream figures may be sorrowful, proud or restless, but that does not make them infected. The radiance belongs to dream, and the infection moves through dream into waking bodies. Yet not everything encountered in dream is a symptom of her plague. The nightmare realm, grim, dream warriors, and old memories each carry separate meanings. This is why the Hollow Knight story is so powerful. It is not just any dream sorrow. It is the specific dream sickness of the radiance breaking through the seal meant to contain her. Even the radiance herself should not be described as corrupted by the infection. She is the source behind it, the forgotten light, whose influence returns through dreams, minds and bodies. The infected creatures are those shaped, driven, or animated by that force. The radiance is not one more victim in the same chain. She is the ancient power whose memory becomes plague when denied and sealed. This difference matters. A corrupted husk has lost itself to the light. The radiance is the light asserting itself. She is not infected by orange dream. She is the dream that infects. When we gather the infected creatures together, the pattern becomes quietly enormous. There are dead citizens, armoured sentries, miners, city nobles, frightened bodies, hungry bodies, elegant bodies, violent bodies, fungal bodies, moss bodies, mantis traitors, floating infected organisms, animated shells, and vessels touched by the deepest wound of all. The infection does not respect class, region, labour, beauty, duty, or bloodline. It moves through the kingdom like an uninvited memory, finding whatever body can answer it. That is why Hallownist feels haunted even when a room is not crowded. Any shape might once have been someone. Any orange glow might be a stolen self. The wandering husk and the hollow knight sit at opposite ends of this tragedy. One is small, common, almost anonymous. The other is central, sacred, and bound to the fate of the whole kingdom. Yet the same plague connects them. This is one of the most melancholic truths in Hallownest. The kingdom's grandest failure and its smallest losses are not separate. The royal plan to seal the radiance did not only fail in a temple far away. Its failure can be felt in every husk still walking, every infected balloon drifting, every corrupted mantis striking from the garden, every orange growth swelling through the crossroads. The centre and the edges share one sorrow. There is also a difference between being infected and being morally guilty. Many corrupted creatures do harm, but harm is not the same as choice. A husk does not seem to choose its violence. A light seed does not carry a philosophy. An infected balloon is not a villain. Myla, most painfully, is not guilty for the change that takes her. The traitor lord and his followers stand closer to choice because their story involves accepting the infection's power, but even there, the result is tragic as well as dangerous. The infection confuses agency. It makes bodies act, but it does not always leave enough self behind for blame. That is why a sleep story about infected creatures can still be gentle. We are not glorifying the harm they cause. We are letting the old bodies be mourned. In a louder telling, every creature would be only a threat. In a quieter telling, each one becomes evidence of a kingdom's injury. The husk guard tells us protection failed. The husk miner tells us labour was not spared. The gorgeous husk tells us wealth offered no shelter. The mossy vagabonds tell us hiding together was not enough. The broken vessel tells us even the pale king's secret children could be left broken under the weight of a plan too cruel to succeed. The infection also changes how we understand place. A creature corrupted in the crossroads feels different from one corrupted in Queen's Gardens, even if both shine with orange light. In the crossroads, corruption feels public and infrastructural, like the main roads of the kingdom have become feverish. In the city, it feels civic, the collapse of station and order. In Crystal Peak, it feels like work and mineral brightness turned hostile. In Greenpath and the fungal wastes, it feels like sickness entering older natural systems. In the basin, it feels almost sacred in its wrongness, close to the vessels and the hidden wound. Every infected creature therefore carries two stories at once. There is the story of the plague, and there is the story of the place the plague touched. The same orange glow means something subtly different in a miner than in a mantis. It means something different in a sentry than in a floating seed. It means something different in Myla than in an anonymous husk. This is why Hallownist's corrupted creatures are memorable. They are not only designs of danger, they are little historical documents written in shells, limbs, wings, and light. Each one records where the kingdom failed to protect life. The orange colour itself becomes one of the kingdom's most powerful signs. It is warm, almost beautiful, yet deeply wrong. Against the blues of the city, it feels feverish. Against the greens of Greenpath, it feels invasive. Against the cold shine of Crystal Peak, it feels like an inner heat trapped beneath glass. Against the darkness of the ancient basin, it feels like a forbidden sunrise. The infected creatures carry that colour as a wound. They glow as if something inside them wants to be seen, wants to be remembered, wants to push outward through shell and skin. The light is not comforting. It is memory without mercy. In the case of husks, the word itself is one of the saddest in the whole kingdom. A husk is what remains after the living centre is gone. It is a shell, a dry outer form, an emptied body. Hallownist uses that word again and again because the infection's damage is not only physical, it is about interior absence. The creature can still move, but the inner life is missing or overwhelmed. The creature can still attack, but the self that once made choices has been buried. To call them husks is to admit that the visible body is not the whole being. Something essential has already been lost. This is also why Myla stands apart. Most husks are encountered after the loss has already happened. Myla lets us notice before and after. Her song is evidence of personhood. Her cheerfulness, however small and simple, becomes a precious thing because Hallownist has so little of it left. When the infection takes her, it does not only take another body, it takes one of the few ordinary warm voices still echoing in the mines. She becomes a measure of what corruption means. Not a theory, not a symbol alone, a song fading into hostility. The traitor mantises, by contrast, show the infection as temptation. Their corruption is tied to strength gained at a cost. The uninfected mantises remain proud and formidable without surrendering to the plague. They prove that power does not require orange light. That makes the traitor's choice feel smaller and sadder. They accepted what others resisted. They broke from the mantis lords and their old code. The infected mantis body therefore carries shame as well as force. It is a body saying that strength without honour can become only another expression of ruin. The broken vessel shows the infection as aftermath. It is not a citizen losing a normal life, and it is not a warrior choosing forbidden strength. It is a discarded sacred body, one of many children cast into the abyss for a purpose no child should have been made to serve. When infection animates that broken form, the scene becomes almost unbearable in its quiet implications. The plague is using a body already harmed by the kingdom before it ever rose to fight. The radiance is force, and the pale king's cruelty meet in that one small figure. The result is not simply corruption, it is layered tragedy. The hollow night shows the infection as containment failing. The body was chosen to hold the radiance, but no living or almost living thing could truly be empty in the way the plan required. A bond, a memory, a trace of feeling, or a flaw in the idea itself was enough to let the seal weaken. When we see the hollow night corrupted, we are seeing the collapse of an entire royal doctrine. The creature was never meant to become a person in the eyes of the plan, but the tragedy depends on the fact that they were one. The infection pouring through them is the kingdom's denial breaking open. The Watcher Knights show the infection as reactivation. Their bodies seem less like living citizens and more like old armoured shells called back into motion. This kind of corruption feels cold and mechanical, but still connected to the same orange force. It suggests that the infection can move through bodies where ordinary life may already be absent or dormant, turning remains into obstacles. In a kingdom obsessed with seals, sleep, and preservation, that is frightening. What should stay still does not stay still. What should guard peacefully rises. What should be past becomes present again. The infected creatures also remind us that the Radiance's power is not merely physical sickness. It is dream, memory, light, and compulsion. The orange growths on bodies are visible signs, but the deeper invasion is inward. The plague reaches through the mind. It calls, it presses, it awakens old worship and burns through the boundaries of self. That is why creatures seem driven rather than merely diseased. The infection is not just a wound on the outside. It is an unwanted command from within, a dream that has become too strong to remain dream. In that sense, every corrupted creature is also a tiny failure of sleep. Hallownest is full of sleep, but much of it is uneasy. The dreamers sleep to seal. The hollow night waits in sealed suffering. The radiance moves through dream. The infected bodies seem like creatures who cannot rest properly, who have been forced into motion by a light that will not let them be still. This is why they belong so strangely in a sleep story. They are unrest made visible. To speak of them softly is to give them for a moment the rest they never received inside the kingdom. If we return once more to the crossroads, the infected creatures there feel like the first breath of the whole disaster. The crossroads connect everything. They are not royal, remote, or specialized. They are passageways. Their corruption means that the sickness has entered the ordinary routes by which a kingdom moves. Wandering husks, leaping husks, husk hornheads, husk bullies, husk warriors, husk guards, violent husks, slobbering husks, furious vengeflies, and volatile gruzzers together create a portrait of public ruin. The road itself becomes a fever. If we return to the city, the infected creatures there feel like social memory collapsing. Husk sentries, heavy sentries, winged sentries, lance sentries, great husk sentries, husk dandies, cowardly husks, gluttonous husks, and gorgeous husks are not just bodies. They are classes, roles, habits, desires, and uniforms. The City of Tears still has architecture, rain, windows, towers, and locked doors, but its population has become a gallery of emptied identities. The infection did not only kill the city, it made the city perform fragments of itself after death. If we return to Crystal Peak, the corrupted creatures there feel like labour and brilliance made cruel. Husk miners continue the image of endless work. Crystallized husks fuse citizen ruin with mineral danger. Myla gives that region its tenderest wound. The crystal guardian and its enraged form make the shining caverns feel watchful and hostile. Crystal Peak is beautiful enough to lull the eye, but the infected and altered bodies inside it remind us that beauty is no protection. Light can shine on suffering. Crystal can grow around loss. A song can fade beneath the sound of a pick. If we return to Greenpath and the fungal wastes, the infected creatures there feel like intrusion into older living systems. The fungified husk carries the damp strangeness of fungus along with husk sorrow. The volatile mosskin shows infection blooming in plant-like bodies. Fool-eaters and gulkers show that even rooted green life can carry the plague, while bellflies show corruption through reckless self-destruction. The mossy vagabonds show a little gathering overtaken together. These creatures matter because they keep the plague from feeling only urban. The infection is not confined to stone and road. It can enter leaf, moss, spore, and hidden shelter. The wild places of Hallownest are not outside history. They are touched by it too. If we return to Queen's Gardens, the infected creatures there feel like betrayal among beauty. The traitor mantises move through thorns and fading royal green, carrying the orange sign of a power they accepted. Mantis traitors, Mantis Petrus, and the traitor lord show corruption as a break from culture. The uninfected mantises elsewhere are severe but honourable, and that contrast is everything. A corrupted mantis is not just another dangerous insect. It is a disciplined body severed from discipline, a proud form made answerable to the wrong light. If we return to the ancient basin, the infected creatures there feel closest to the secret core of Hallownest's pain. Light seeds and infected balloons drift around the broken vessel story like small symptoms of a larger wound. The broken vessel itself lies at the centre of that region's infected sorrow, and lost kin turns that sorrow inward through dream. Here, corruption is not public ruin or social decay. It is the failure of the kingdom's hidden solution. The basin does not simply show infected life, it shows what happened beneath all the ceremonies and seals, in the dark where unwanted children were left. If we return to the black egg, everything narrows. The hollow night stands not as one corrupted creature among many, but as the sealed centre from which the whole tragedy can be understood. The infection in them is both contained and escaping, both trapped and triumphant. Every orange creature elsewhere in the kingdom becomes easier to understand after this. They are not isolated oddities. They are the kingdom's sealed wound, leaking outward through dream, body, and memory. The Hollow Knight's suffering casts a quiet shadow over every husk, every infected seed, every feverish wing. There is no need to make the infected creatures more dramatic than they already are. Their sadness works because it is so often understated. A husk walks, a myna sings, then stops being herself. A mantis takes power and loses honour. A vessel rises broken and bright with infection. A sealed child struggles in the dark. The story does not need to invent extra tragedies to hurt. The existing ones are enough. Hallownest is full of restraint, and its corrupted creatures are most powerful when we let that restraint remain. The safest way to name every corrupted creature is not to pretend the category is bigger than it is. It is to say, these are the bodies Hallownest clearly marks with huskhood, infection, orange volatility, infected animation, or narrative surrender to the plague. These are the citizens and guards, the miners and city figures, the moss-touched bodies, infected plant-like traps, fungal husks, bellflies, and the volatile creatures of the changed crossroads, the light seeds and infected balloons, the traitor mantises, the watcher knights, the broken vessel, and the hollow knight. Around them are many other dangers, but these are the ones that belong to the infection story most directly. And now, as the names settle, the creatures begin to feel less like threats and more like silhouettes. The wandering husk fades into the road. The husk hornhead lowers its heavy shell. The leaping husk becomes only a shadow against old stone. The husk bully's charge slows until it is just a memory of movement. The husk warrior's weapon lowers in the dimness. The husk guard stands quiet at a door no one needs to enter tonight. The entombed husk returns to the hush of the resting grounds. The city sentries become shapes behind rain. The heavy sentry, winged sentry, lance sentry, and great husk sentry all soften into the architecture, armour dim beneath the sound of water. The husk dandy's elegance becomes only a faded outline. The cowardly husk hides in the dark and need not come out. The gluttonous husk's appetite is quiet. The gorgeous husk's ornament catches no more light. The husk miner rests the pick. The crystallized husk is still among the shining walls. Mila's song, the old gentle one, is allowed to be remembered before the fever reached it. The crystal guardian sits without rising. The cold crystals shine overhead like stars underground. Nothing moves quickly. Nothing needs to be fought. The mountain is only a glittering chamber in a story being told very softly. The fungified husk sinks into the damp hush of the wastes. The volatile mosskin becomes a small orange glow behind leaves. The fool-eater closes its hungry petals. The gulka is quiet among the foliage. The bellfly stays sleeping on the ceiling and does not fall. The mossy vagabonds sit together in their hidden place, no longer frightening for this moment, only sad and still. Greenpath breathes around them. The old moss grows slowly. The pathways curl under roots. Somewhere far away, the memory of Un's green dream lies quiet and deep. The mantis traitors lower their claws. In the garden dusk, the mantis petras fold their wings. The traitor lord becomes only a large shadow among thorns, the echo of a choice that led away from honour. Far from him, in the village, the mantis lords remain poised and uninfected, proof that discipline endured somewhere in the kingdom. The contrast can rest now. The garden can be dark. The village can be still. The light seeds dim like small embers. The infected balloons drift into silence. The broken vessel lies no longer as a threat, but as a lost child of the abyss, a body that carried too many meanings for so small a shell. Lost kin becomes the gentler name, the sadder name, the name that remembers relationship. In the deep basin the old orange glow recedes. The shadows gather kindly for once. The watcher knights sleep again in the high spire. Their armour is heavy and still. The city of tears reigns below them, endlessly, patiently, as if water could smooth the edges of every old mistake. Lurian's tower grows quiet. The windows darken. The streets below are empty, but not lonely tonight. They're only resting inside the voice of the story. The hollow knight stands at the centre, and then even that image softens. The chains are far away. The black egg is far away. The orange light is far away. The terrible duty, the failed seal, the old royal plan, the suffering child at the heart of the kingdom, all of it begins to loosen into darkness, not forgotten, never falsely healed, only held gently enough that the listener can rest. A corrupted creature is a body that could not keep the light out. A husk is a shell after the self has been taken. A traitor is a proud body answering the wrong promise. A vessel is a child shaped into a purpose no child should bear. A kingdom is not only ruined by one great failure, it is ruined in small bodies too, in miners, in guards, in wanderers, in singers, in shells left moving after the song is gone. But tonight, nothing has to move. Tonight, the infected crossroads are quiet. The orange bulbs do not burst. The wings do not beat. The sentries do not rise. The mantises do not strike. The balloons do not drift closer. The husks do not wander. The old roads are empty. The rain is soft. The lamps are low. The kingdom is far below you now. Far below the room where you're resting. Far below the pillow. Far below the slow breath. Hallownest can keep its sorrow for a while. You do not have to carry it. You only listened. You only followed the little orange lights through the dark. And now they are fading, one by one, creature by creature, name by name, until only quiet remains. Now the bestiary can soften. The husks are far away. The crossroads are quiet. The furious vengeflies no longer circle overhead. The volatile gruzzers are only little sparks in memory. The husk guards have lowered their weapons. The city sentries are still. The gorgeous husk sleeps behind its old shell. The miners in Crystal Peak have stopped striking the stone. Mila's song is faint and gentle again, somewhere beyond the reach of the orange light. The light seeds are still. The infected balloons drift no more. Broken vessel rests in the ancient basin. Lost kin is only a name now, soft with sorrow. The watcher knights do not rise. The fools do not fight. The mantis traitors are quiet among the thorns. The traitor lord's strength is gone from the garden. The hollow night is not chained in this room. The radiance is only a faraway brightness in an old story. You do not need to fight any of them tonight. You do not need to remember every name. You do not need to decide which creatures were victims and which ones reached for power. You do not need to enter the black egg. You do not need to cure a kingdom before morning. Just breathe, let the orange light dim, let the old roads cool, let the infected bodies become only shadows in a story already told. Let Hallownest grow quiet beneath the earth. Let the night sit on a bench, far from every hostile room. Let the map fold closed. Let the rain continue in the city of tears. Let the stag bells hang still. Let the dreamers sleep until their names are needed. and let yourself rest too. Sleep well, wherever you're listening from. Good night.